slowly but surely, senior leaders, junior leaders, soldiers, officers, NCOs at every echelon across the DoD began to wake up and realize that if we don't prepare for this, if we don't start embracing this new technology, this change in warfare, that we're going to have a significant emotional event the next time we do go to war. And drones are rapidly, increasingly becoming the go-to source to solve simple, tactical, operational, and strategic problem sets.
Welcome to Hangar X Studios, where former fighter pilot and host John Ramstead takes us on a journey across aerospace as it enters an historic period of innovation and transformation. Our guests include aviation experts, pilots, financiers, military leaders, and innovators of all types. Buckle up for another episode of Hangar X.
Today's episode is brought to you by our platinum sponsor, XTI Aerospace. They are powering the vertical economy, building a long-range VTOL, and you can find more at xtiaerospace.com. Now, please remember to like, comment, and share on this channel, and enjoy today's podcast. Hey, welcome to the Hangar X Studios podcast, and this is the place where innovators, aerospace experts, defense, commercial, this is where everybody comes to get the information that you need for decisions, for knowledge, for what's happening. This is the radar for this entire space and this transformation that's happening right now across what we are calling the vertical economy, from drones all the way through advanced, high-range, high-speed VTOLs. And today we have on Lieutenant Colonel Michael Brabner. Colonel, welcome onto the podcast.
Thank you.
So I got a little background here. I want to read this. But 25 years in the Army, you've frontline combat. You've been deep in defense acquisitions and unmanned systems. You're currently a branch chief in requirements. You've been on the front lines and commanded troops in Iraq and Afghanistan. And today you're really shaping the Army's future with purpose-built attributable systems, PBAS. We're going to talk about it. The Army has a lot of acronyms, so we're going to get into some of these acronyms, Brabs. But really what this is cutting-edge drones, offensive and defensive, and you just have this warfighter's grit as we've gotten to know you, a systems thinking mentality, and now you're leading robotics innovation at Fort Moore, and you are a big believer in not only rapid iteration, but rapid adaptation, and without which we're going to lose the next war. So, and recently, if people aren't familiar, there was an executive order that came out a couple weeks ago, followed up on making drones and vertical flight, America the center of that. But Secretary of Defense Hegseth came out and just doubled down on that. I would just summarize what he said is we will be dominant globally for drones and drone technology, and put a very thoughtful and thorough paper that came out. The one that was public-facing is really a summary, a one-pager, but Michael's gone all the way through in depth. It's actually what he's working on, and I just wanted to share maybe my first question for you, Michael, as we jump in here, because you have a thesis, and that is that drones will change warfare. They've already changed it, but it's going to permanently change and transform warfare, and we have to adapt. It's a requirement. And here's a question for you. So what observation or moments in time or maybe some things that are happening on today's battlefields have just cemented that belief for you?
So I've been fortunate to be on the sidelines, and I'm not at the two-way petting zoo. We work with a lot of people that are deploy and assist. And then
what's the two-way petting zoo?
Oh, we call that the combat zone. You can pet the tiger, but the tiger pets back, So
okay.
I've been using that phrase since Baghdad during the surge in Afghanistan. But you can learn a lot of lessons. And unfortunately for us, we're not paying for those lessons in, blood, sweat, and tears right now. So as active listeners and learners like we are, if you look back at what we did with the IED threat and how we evolved and adapted and semi-overcame that to some degree with material, acquisition and military capabilities. When you really dive in and look at Ukraine, taking all those lessons learned, they're free lessons, right? So we've been actively paying attention to those, working with subject matter experts across not just the Army, but the DoD writ large, given we write joint requirements and have been trying to influence the joint space. And I think we've done a good job over the last 36 months of my tenure. But it was hard. A lot of it was administrative. Sometimes I felt like we were barking up a tree, but we stayed the course, and slowly but surely, senior leaders, junior leaders, soldiers, officers, NCOs at every echelon across the DoD began to wake up and realize that if we don't prepare for this, if we don't start embracing this new technology, this change in warfare, that we're going to have a significant emotional event the next time we do go to war.
Well, no, I agree with that. You know, I love your thoughts too. I think just for people listening, what are some of the things that are actually happening on the battlefield that's creating such a focus and a transformation? I was at an unclassified Air Force briefing. I do a lot of strategic consulting to the Air Force. This was a major command, a wing command. All 65 other officers were there. And I remember the intelligence officer said he just got back from Ukraine, and one of the most lethal things on the battlefield right now is no longer the sniper. It's the drone operator. And there was a Ukrainian soldier who had, I believe, at this time, and this was 9 months ago, 635 confirmed kills.
Yeah.
So think about it. You have this $200 drone that you just throw in the air, and now the sniper is not even exposed. He's not, in a location that he has to crawl into. And that's got to just be completely change the battle space. And then I just saw an article the other day about how many Russian tanks, I think 2,500 were killed by drones. So what are some of the other things that are happening, though, those stories that are happening on the battlefield, both offensive and defensive, where we're going, okay, this is radically going to change how we're going to be fighting wars and how our troops operate in the field?
Yeah, it's been incredible. Just yesterday I was on Fort Benning, not Fort Moore, by the way. It went back.
Okay.
And I ran into Second Lieutenant Hasna. And I think about 18 months ago, I was up at Picatinny Arsenal, and he was a West Point cadet at the time doing an internship at Picatinny Arsenal. And he did a research study, I think, where he used over 200,000 variables of data points collected from Russia and Ukraine on the conflict. And he ran a whole series of metrics and analysis, and his outputs were incredible. So it was really cool bumping into him yesterday. Fast forward, I'm getting ready to retire. He's, commissioned and is now starting his journey as an infantryman. But just seeing the young soldiers that can see over the horizon what the problems are going to be, and then what tools we need to solve those problems. And drones are rapidly, increasingly becoming the go-to source to solve simple, tactical, operational, and strategic problem sets. And acquisition, one of the tenets of acquisition I learned early on at Picatinny as an assistant product manager, working ammunition programs. In combat, especially material acquisition, you want to look to what you want to kill, what effects you want to have on it, and then reverse engineer back to the end user, the system or systems of systems to achieve that desired outcome or effect. So I've been really impressed and very fortunate to befriend a lot of soldiers, officers, and NCOs in this space that are at the cutting edge of trying to learn, and they've been doing a lot with a very little. So now with Pete Hegseth's memorandum and declaration, it sounds like, we're not just listening to the beating war drums anymore. People are like marching in tune to that rhythm, that change. And a lot of what my office has had to do is act as a change agent. When you look back across like the 25 years of the global war on terrorism, we were not good users of technology. I don't know if you listened to General Rainey's podcast where he was a guest on the drone ultimatum a couple weeks ago, but I listened to it and took notes. And the podcaster was asking him some very poignant questions, and General Rainey, master of strategy at the strategic, operational, and tactical level, was breaking it down. He's like, basically what I took away was like, we're not going to fight like the Ukrainians. We're gonna attack warfare in a joint capacity. Just look what the B-2 bombers did over Iran a few weeks ago, and how we can layer in multiple layers of offense and defense to achieve those objectives. So I'm just really pleased that this memorandum came out. And as I'm getting ready to retire with a son and a daughter who will probably end up going into the Army, that they hopefully enter a service that was better than I left it.
Well, I want you to think back, some of those deployments when you were on the ground, Brabs.
Yeah.
Right? And I know some of the things you've talked about, there were some capability gaps. There are some things that we have today you really wish you would have had then. There's some things that are coming. You're like, that would have been a game changer, especially some of these UAS, unmanned aerial systems that are being deployed. What are some of those gaps, and what are some of those things that we're working on right now that you can talk about that they're going to be changing how we go to war? And how do we keep our guys from, also coming home?
Yeah, looking back at Iraq and Afghanistan, it's, sensor to shooter, shortening that kill chain, that loop. It was always paralysis by analysis with, higher group level 3-4-5 systems, combatant commanders that were, eyes on the screen, dictating things at the tactical level that we had little to no control of due to separation by time and space, and then really the geographic terrain, whether it was, the urban areas of Baghdad and other areas of Iraq, but where I was in RC East, Kunar province, it was really a 3D warfighting octagon that we were in. And, weather comes in, clouds, storms, you don't have enough time on station. The tactical force is just left there kind of holding the ball, and you still have to fight the fight. And like a lot of what drove our strategy with the Joint Small UAS Capabilities Development Document strategy was thinking back on those vignettes and then taking all the current intelligence and information we were getting and trying to mesh it and like make it meet in the middle to somehow define what we needed in terms of a material solution, small UAS group 1 and group 2, to solve and achieve those tactical outcomes to very complex problems. The crux of which kind of stems on, like, in the infantry, we always say master the basics, shoot, move, communicate. And if you can do those well, 9 times out of 10, you're going to be pretty successful. And we looked at the basics of Group 1 and Group 2 UAS really centered around
What's the difference between Group 1 and Group 2 for those that don't know?
It's a weight matter, dictated by, the FAA. And I think with this memorandum, we may see some exemptions come out of it. More capability, more juice for the squeeze. But we really focused on, first and foremost, EOIR sensor. So it's an aerial sensor. Maybe you've heard me say this on other podcasts in the past, but throughout the history of mankind, key terrain is always the high ground, right? So as an infantryman, high ground to me is the highest point on the ground that I can get to, so I can have observations, fields of fire, I can sense, and then I can shoot and deliver effects on target, right? For you as a naval aviator, you always occupied the most critical piece of key terrain, which was the sky, the air, what you've heard General Rainey say, the air, ground, littoral, that space between the actual ground to a set degree for small UAS and like the lower echelons of unmanned aerial systems. So the ability to get up there with an organic asset and not have to get on your bone mic and call for help is going to be absolutely critical. And we've seen this play out in Ukraine, where tactical commanders at any echelon, like battalion and below, brigade and below, now has an organic asset, and they can use that organic asset at a time and place of their choosing. And that's going to be absolutely paramount in changing the way we fight.
And that organic asset, I'm guessing, is some kind of kinetic drone or a sensor, or
we've kind of developed a strategy that hinges on a hunter-killer paradigm. If you need a really good sensor, you probably don't want to strap kinetics to it. And then with purpose-built attritable system, otherwise known around the world as FPV, now I have a kinetic capability that's relatively low cost. I kind of say next to no cost in terms of capability when compared against other armaments. Just look what's happening in Ukraine. A low-cost FPV taking out a tank, right?
And what does FPV stand for again?
First-person view. First-person view
Okay.
drones. Yeah, so operator under goggles.
We got to translate for
flying
us,
their system.
The rest of it.
Yeah. Sorry, in the Army, we, as you said earlier, we do use a lot of acronyms.
Yep.
But It's going to be absolutely critical. So EOIR sensor was like our first modular mission payload that we really zeroed in on, and then based on the echelon of small UAS that we're using, you'll have a varying degree of sensibility through that sensor. So our soldier-borne sensor program, Teledyne FLIR Black Hornet 4, 79 gram, copter. Very good sensor on it, but we can't put any lethality on it. So that would be like a hunter for the squad and like platoon level, right? But when paired with PBAS, I can send that soldier-borne sensor Black Hornet 4 out, low radar cross section, very hard to detect, has an increase in survivability for the number of missions it can do based on its physical attributes, size, weight, and power, low acoustic signature for detectability by the enemy. Thermals. I can go out and hunt now, and I never have to leave my location. So it flips the paradigm that we were under the knife in Afghanistan and Iraq of, I don't know if you ever heard the phrase. I was always taught from being a enlisted soldier, an Army ROTC cadet, then a young officer, and then up through multiple combat deployments. It was always a time and place of the enemy's choosing. But now by embracing small UAS, changing our culture, having them be consumable commodities, tools in our kit bag to use tactically, we can flip that paradigm to a time and place of our choosing. And that's what got a lot of soldiers, hurt, injured, even worse, killed in Iraq and Afghanistan, as we were always on patrol, and it was always that time and place of the enemy's choosing. And we were not good users of the technology we had at the time because we relied on bigger assets like rotary wing, fixed ring, bigger group UAS at the brigade and above level to go out and find those targets.
So are these designed to be used like down at what's the smallest element, like a squad?
Yeah, squad. So group 1 and group 2.
4 to 6 people?
About 6 to 9, depending on strength. Yeah. And then so for group 1 and group 2 at Fort Benning, we do battalion and below. And then at Fort Rucker, Alabama, they do group 3, 4, 5. But really, over the last 3 years, and partnering with the aviation proponency, us being the maneuver proponency here at Fort Benning, we've really synergized efforts, and where they're enabling us, we're enabling them, and we're learning. And now, through so much collaboration of not just subordinate leaders, but senior Army leaders across the DoD or across the Army and the DoD. Now I think we're starting to maximize efficiencies and then focus on the problem at hand, which was really outlined in the SecDef's memorandum last week. The second sensor that we really focused on was communication extension network relay. It goes back to the basics of shoot, move, communicate. So EOIR sensor, I need to see, I need to sense. Communications extension network relay, I need to be able to communicate across a mesh network that enables my small unit subordinate elements. The third
So I'm basically
payload,
launching a little portable relay station that then allows you to immediately jump into the system. And I'm guessing it also is designed to probably be effective against jamming or any kind of EW type.
Yeah. Survivability of the system across the Army tactical network. I've seen a lot of soldiers with end user device, ATAC. So the ability to communicate was something that kind of plagued us across Baghdad, and especially where I was in the mountains of Afghanistan. You go a couple ridge lines deep into the Hindu Kush Mountains, and if you don't have SATCOMs, you are alone and unafraid for an undetermined amount of time. And what may happen will probably, most likely will happen. That's kind of a scary place to be in as a tactician on the ground, responsible for the lives, well-being of your soldiers, officers, and NCOs under your command. So now having that organic tool, time and place of your choosing to gain decision advantage or dominance over your enemy is going to be paramount. The third modular mission payload we worked on was electronic warfare, either passive or active at various degrees, and also the survivability aspect of that as well. If your system can't survive GPS degraded, denied environments, it's not a very good system. So it ties back to the requirements, and industry is really starting to rise to the top and deliver solutions, whether that be a modular mission payload for EW, electronic warfare, or system survivability. We always try to aim to have systems that are suitable, effective, and most importantly, survivable, not just for the system, but for the operator. And the fourth and final modular mission payload that we zeroed in on by direction of Army Futures Command was lethality. Organic lethality, or if you're fighting that hunter kind of killer model, what lethality can I call or bring to bear, whether that's launched effects, low altitude and stalk and strike ordnance, rocket, cannon artillery fires, or even at higher echelons, fixed wing, rotary wing, armaments delivered capabilities on the battlefield. So it's going to be a really layered approach. And General Rainey, I think, said it best a couple of weeks ago. And when he said, we're not going to fight like the Ukrainians, you don't see a whole lot of maneuver over there in Eastern Europe. We're always expeditionary, especially as an Army, Marine Corps, Navy, Air Force. You always have to go to them, right? So, and in a greater capacity, we're going to have to maneuver. We don't just sit somewhere in the defense. Like, we like to be on the offense. Short amounts of time in the defense to reconstitute combat power, and then prepare for your next maneuver action to overwhelm the enemy. And I think that's the point of unleashing U.S. military drone dominance. I'm very proud of this memorandum. I didn't help in the draft stages of it. I like to think that the work my team did over the last 36 months, and then my predecessor, and this has been condition setting now for many years in the making, as we closed out the global war on terrorism and began to look around the world and kind of prepare for where our next fight may be. And I don't think anybody can truly say beyond a reasonable doubt where that may be, which kind of makes a hard problem set for us to have to solve. So we need to have adaptable solutions. We need to focus on our U.S. industrial base, and then cultivating innovation based on our requirements and our tactical, operational, or strategic needs. A big part of it was reducing regulatory barriers too. It has been a frustrating pain over the course of my 25-year career, looking back at the use of the RQ-11 Bravo or Charlie, which more commonly known as the Raven. That's what I had. That's all we had at the company level in terms of unmanned aerial systems or small UAS.
And that was more like an eye in the sky type capability. Is that correct?
Yeah, it had no lethality, had a sensor, had some good station time. It was a good tool for the time that we had it. I would venture to say that we were not good users of that technology. So to now see like the regulatory red tape being cut and pushing down that risk acceptance level, to the 06 commander level, is going to be huge. And kind of breaking down those regulatory barriers that have really inhibited us, end of GWAT to like where we are now in 2025.
Well, earlier you talked about just the lethality of drone warfare, right? That the Raven was good, wasn't lethal. And, something you said in the past, so I don't know if I'm asking this question the right way, but feel free to reframe it or phrase it. But you talked about moving beyond FPV, first person view, and there's some systems out there like Audible and Click, but there's things that are coming to make, better, more lethal drones. Could you talk a little bit about, for people to understand, what is FPV, where are things going, and what are some of the capabilities we could be seeing out there? Anything you can talk about that's not classified?
Yeah. So we had to take an incremental approach, right? Everybody wants to get to swarms. Everybody, swarms on the battlefield.
You're hearing about those. I mean, the Russians with a drone swarm, and then the defense of these are problematic, and right?
Yeah, but at the time in July 1st of 2022, when I came on, we didn't have a culture or even an appetite to want to do that. So we were like, how do we attack this problem? And, you got to eat the elephant one bite at a time. So we started off small. It's like, can we take a program of record, short-range reconnaissance, Skydio RQ-28 Alpha, and 3D print a safe modular mission payload to deliver lethality on the battlefield, and then pair those two together and achieve desired effects. And we did that working with DevCom Armament Center at Picatinny. We created the Audible, which stands for Armament UAS Delivered Immediate Battlefield Lethal Effects. And that just was
I like
that was kind of I just came up with it in my office one day, and I'm like, what do we call this damn thing? And, I'd seen a documentary of Peyton Manning standing at the line calling an audible, and he was a master of coming to the line and reading the defense and then changing his offense to achieve what he wanted to achieve on the football field. So we called it audible.
Well, every audible was Omaha, but it's how he said it and how many times.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, like, why'd they go that way? He just said the same thing, but
yeah,
they had it down, though.
It was great. So we went out and did a soldier enhancement program proposal, and we got $2 million to make 50 systems and get them out across the 4 brigades.
Being done with commercial? Like, I just finished reading the book Unit X about the Defense Innovation Unit that is the partnership between the military and civilian, commercial companies to rapidly, iterate, develop some of these technologies the warfighter needs.
We did it
done internally.
It was done internally. We did it separate. So we went through PEO Soldier out of Fort Belvoir, Virginia, and they awarded us, based on our audible proposal and our intention to pair it with a program of record drone that had just been fielded, they awarded us $2 million to go out and make these systems, do some RDT&E, field these systems, and get actual soldier feedback. So for me, it was really the first stages of this whole change model that's been encapsulated in this memorandum from the SecDef of let the end user kind of define what they want and then work to help them solve those problems. So with Audible, we went from having nothing on a drone. So, the short-range reconnaissance was just like the Raven. It was an ISR only platform. And in 2022, General Rainey said intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance payloads are no longer acceptable. And we kind of took that as a marching order, like, well, we better start getting after lethality. So with Audible, what we did was worked with some great engineers at Picatinny, and they 3D printed a very safe, reliable, fuse-compliant modular mission payload that allowed us to deliver hand grenades, smoke grenades, flashbangs, and incendiary grenades all in one capability. And we were doing that based on watching the Ukrainians and also understanding that no general officer or safety officer in any part of the DoD is going to let our soldiers sit in a foxhole and take a Dremel tool or a hacksaw to existing armaments and try to demill them and then repackage them and put blasting caps in them, because where that leads, right? Don't have to be a smart person to know that we'd have soldiers like blowing themselves up. And we learned that a lot of Ukrainians actually died as armorers in small UAS units, demilitarizing armaments that they had or we had given them. And we're like, okay, well, we got to do it better than that. The minute we blow up one soldier, the train stops until they do a safety investigation and people are held accountable. And why'd you assume this risk? Was it a necessary risk? These are the consequences. So we had to incrementally kind of climb this ladder to where we are now of testing the waters, not just at the Maneuver Center of Excellence at Fort Benning, but in tandem and in partnership with the Aviation Center of Excellence, who has full proponency of all things that go in the air, right? Not just small UAS, rotary wing, some fixed wing for the Army. So it was a hard road or a hard path to walk. It was uphill both ways, but we did it. And Audible was a huge success story. And now it's codified in the purpose-built attritable system requirement for first-person drone capability. It just gives us another tool to affix to small UAS to achieve those battlefield outcomes in a low-cost, next to no-cost manner. If I can, if my platoon is dug into a defensive position, and I'll just say the mountains of Afghanistan, and 5 kilometers away, I have observations on an enemy unit. I don't need to maneuver to them and get in a direct fire, battle. If I can take a UAS and I can go over there and I can strategically pick apart that unit, see where their command and control element is, maybe where their mortar firing point is or their machine gun point. I can drop a hand grenade there, or I can mark the target with, one of the various smoke grenades we have in our arsenal. Then I can call for fire, because now I'm adding to the COP, right? My boss Dom Edwards always says,
COP?
Common operating picture. It's that shared common operational picture of where everybody knows what's going on. And if I can mark a target or I can take out a key enemy leader or machine gun nest or something, and I don't have to put myself in harm's way or within plunging or direct fire of those enemies.
It's always fun calling in the fire for effect call, isn't it?
I've done it many times, and my FO always called me. He's like, "Hey, sir, I think they're dead now," and I was like, "Oh, let's do another volley, man. I just want to make sure."
Anybody out there listening, what you do is you throw in a couple marking rounds to make sure your accuracy, you're on the target you want to be on, and once you got it sighted in, fire for effect is you basically unleash hell on that position, and they are then neutralized.
Oh yeah, we were. My unit was very good at it up in the mountains of Afghanistan. We got reports from like Taliban commanders that we intercepted over their voice comms. These infidels are smarter than the last ones. Let's wait. All they do is smoke cigars, laugh, and kill us. Let's wait till the next unit cycles in. But to have these tools, if I could go back in a time machine and deliver them to my unit, we would have been on orders of magnitude so much more successful in what we were doing. So
more people would have come home. You would have been there in shorter periods of time. I know the op cycle, the tempo, what that means is how much time you're spending over there in the sandbox was just
wears you out.
Grinding people down.
It wears you out. It really does.
I did 2 9-month tours, and that by the end of that second one, man, I was ready to take a break.
Yeah, I have friends that have, I can't even tell you how many they have. It's just insane how much time they've spent overseas. But that was really a driving force of us working so hard. And I mean, we started off as an 8-man team in 2022. And then, by early this year, we, due to budget cuts and everything, we're down to a 2-man team. Still the same amount of work, but pain shared is pain divided. So it goes back to that collaboration and then teaming with other entities within the Army and the DoD to achieve these outcomes. So I'm very proud of it.
Well, you're getting ready to retire, right, and move into a whole new chapter of life. But I know what you're talking about here around UAS capabilities in this document that just came out. What message would you like to leave for anybody listening who's, active, they're leaders, both in DoD and industry, about why this is so important, why there absolutely has to be a sense of urgency, and the best and the brightest out there need to be focusing on creating real solutions rapidly?
Yeah. One of the underlying things I took away from the memorandum was having a long-term vision. And we've been working on that for a while now. But now to have it, echoed from the man on the mountain at the top, if the SecDef came out and said, "Hey, I want every wall painted pink," we'd be marching out to Home Depot and getting pink paint and painting walls. Not saying he would do that, but having a long-term vision and then bringing everybody under that, as a combined effort. And what does that allow us to do? It allows for strategic investment and competition. And then also it allows us, through execution and learning, how do we develop the training and infrastructure enhancements that we need to train as we're going to fight? A lot of the places right now, it's difficult to do UAS lethality. And I know over the last 3 years of working with various installations, Army posts, that units, they really struggled trying to train this, and they were getting after it with their own funds, buying stuff off the DIU blue list, trying to do paired lethality with it. So now to have a clear, concise, holistic vision on how we do this is going to be huge. And then it's also going to, I think, really reinforce a continuous adaptation model. And I think that is what industry is looking at, that continuous adaptation model. You're probably familiar with DoD material solutions that have 10 years. I mean, look at some of our strategic bombers. How old are they? With small UAS, the adaptation cycle that we're seeing in Russia, Ukraine, and China.
We're still flying the B-52. That was old when I was in 30 years ago.
Yeah. But it meets the bill, right? It fits the bill. But allowing industry to get out and innovate and adapt and then challenge. I think that's going to be so good just in terms of competition brings out the best in everybody. And I don't think anybody wants to see one ring to rule them all, because then you fall into that complacency model where you're inconsistent and it's not meeting the needs of the warfighter. So, whatever the prescribed amount of time is, kind of getting away, if we do get away from a program or record status, allowing industry all these open on-ramps to get into the game. And then it keeps people honest and also on their toes, tuning, software, hardware, modular mission payload solutions, basically creating multi-tools that fly in the sky to give our warfighters that decision advantage that they so long to have organic at their disposal.
Well, very well said. And Lieutenant Colonel Brabner, look forward to the next conversation, probably when you're out. Well, you get out next February, so you still got some time, but we'd love to have you back anytime. There's a couple other topics I'd love to talk to you about.
Yeah.
We didn't really get into some of the swarm conversations. I think also drone as first responder that I think both the military and the civilian world are adopting. So there's some other things I'd love to have you come back on and even go deeper in if you're open.
Yeah, I would love to. Those are other areas I'm very passionate about too. I like to see a lot of the civilian technology and capabilities. They usually and mostly do transition towards military capabilities, and it goes both ways. So we're going to be able to do so much with this, and I think unleashing U.S. drone dominance is something that's been a long time coming, and it's really good to see as I'm getting ready to retire where we are, and I'm really excited for the team to keep rowing and chopping wood and see what they accomplish in the next year, 2, 3 years to come.
Well, you know what? That can be your retirement job. You can set up the drone dominance store, create killer merch, and killer drones, and we can sell them around the world. So
okay.
All right, Brabs. Great having you on. Great to meet you, and I look forward to our next conversation.
Sounds good.